Like,
Yeah.
did you pre-populate? Because then I can put it in our show.
Yeah,
Hi,
no.
everybody. We're bleeding in from the pre-show where we talk about administrative things to now the real pre-show where we talk about fun human factorsy things.
Yeah. We have the pre-show where we talk about everybody behind the back before they come into the room.
Exactly.
Right, let me just get that link for you.
I had a lot of fun with tonight's thumbnail.
Oh yes, we seem to have hit a bit of a formula about how to get more listeners, and that's blatantly to talk around subjects that are slightly more risque.
Yeah. I mean, tonight's topic is very fun. Although, look, like we're talking about kissing here. We're not nothing else.
Well, we start.
There's a technology. We're talking about a technology here.
Yes.
That has practical applications.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. I'm just going to chuck that. The link that you've asked for is now under the programming notes.
Under programming notes. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. This is actually something I need to feed back to Podpage. So obviously, both of our websites use Podpage, and I really like it in the main. But when you're doing the URL for the next episode, which you can pre-fulfill, there should be a copy button to put it straight onto your clipboard, rather than have to highlight it and do that. Because the button that looks like it should be the copy button is the edit button.
Mm-hmm.
That's from the folks at Podpage. If you're listening, because clearly you'll be listening to us tonight, then there's a little bit of free usability advice for you.
Yeah. You know what else they need, which is something that I've been requesting for a very long time, is the ability to not only pre-populate the link, but other details too. So like if you have anything else, as soon as it's live, it just overwrites it. Because every week, what I have to do, since Podpage, just for listeners behind the scenes, Podpage has a separate signature section, which is the same on every single episode, which is great. Mm-hmm. If we need to update information about like how to contact us, or we also use it for like voting on our stories that are coming up next week. We embed the tweet there so that way everyone can engage on to this current episode. And so one thing that I would love to do is preset what the description would be, because in our description that we send out everywhere, it includes some of that information. But on Podpage, it's kind of static and changes week to week. So that way, or it's dynamic and changes week to week. So that way, no matter which episode you're listening to on there, it'll always have the most up-to-date information. So basically the need to sort of pre-populate other fields other than just the URL for the next episode. And I will put this is live Monday.
It would save so much effort. Because you're right, because you have to wait for the RSS feed to update, for then to push it to then produce the episode, and then you can go in and add all the things as you just highlighted. I don't see. I mean, I know it's not. It's easy to look from the outside and sort of say it shouldn't be dead easy to do that, but I'm sure it's got to be fairly easy to do it. Mm-hmm. As long as you keep that URL the same. Why would it go wrong?
Well, it ingests data, and all you need to do is, have a system in place that's automatically overwrites that data with what you pre-populated. Like I say it like it's so easy. I'm a developer.
Exactly. It's funny enough. I have quite a lot of similar conversations whenever we're running project teams. I just want this. It's dead easy, isn't it? I mean, it's just a widget. Just chuck the widget in. And then they get all upset. Apparently, I'm taking them for granted and all sorts of things. Right. Intro for you, because I'm nice like
that. Do you like the additions that I made to the It Came From section, just to kind of give us like the framing and
but I appreciate your ambition, but you do realize I still just got completely off topic with that.
And that's fine. It's mainly for me.
That's fine.
All right. So, yeah, we are talking about, bring it back to the topic tonight. We're talking about kissing in VR. And we'll leave it there for now. But we are sort of trying again this system of breaking down the article by what do you call these, Barry?
I call them human factors domains.
Domains, dimensions.
Yeah, they're domains, I think.
Okay.
So the only reason I've used the one, so for those who are listening early, particularly if you're UK based, you might recognise them because I've just stolen them straight from the military standard, because that's what I do. And so split them down by personnel training, human factors engineering, system safety and health, organisational and social. And in some ways, I think it's a good way to make sure you capture all the different aspects. But what I don't think we have is, last week you had some extra ones in there to pick up some really almost like some of the cognitive bits, the psych bits, which this doesn't necessarily lend itself to. So we might want to add some brackets into these. I don't think we need more sections, but I think just to make sure we include the
right sections. I think you're right, and maybe that's once we get this to a place, because I'd like to add in a couple more bullet points to this list as we're talking tonight, just before the show, to make me feel a little bit more comfortable about sort of the conversation. I think we have enough here, but I want to pad it just in case. But yeah, I think one sort of exercise, once we have enough, it might be kind of like, let's take these 5 categories, and I'm actually going to do this right now, and sort of repopulate them here, and then I'm going to take the technical groups and kind of pre-populate those, so that way we can just kind of look at maybe where certain things to consider, if that makes sense.
So you want to create a matrix of
thing? I wouldn't necessarily call it a matrix, but like I'm saying, there's there are going to be things outside of domains, right?
I bet there isn't.
I bet there is, like aerospace systems. Where does that fall? Because that's
human factors engineering.
Okay. All right. I see you. Okay.
Go on.
Aging would be like
aging is personnel.
No. All right. Let's see if we can do this. Augmented cognition. That's
it's either personnel or HFE. Yeah, I would say HFE. Yeah,
in the wrong spot. Speaking of this, I really just need to. I have so much to do before I go on leave next week, just for personal stuff, podcast stuff, and work stuff. So much stuff. Children's issues. Where's that fall? Personnel?
Yep.
All right. Cognitive engineering, decision making.
Engineering.
HFE?
Yeah.
Comms, that's pretty self-explanatory. Goes into wait, I said this was I think it's here.
Personnel. Well, it could
personnel?
It can fit into both. Actually, leaving comms makes more sense.
Okay. Computer systems.
HFE.
HFE has a lot. That's why I'm like, maybe we break up HFE. Cybersecurity is
breaking it up by these bits though works. Cyber. What was that? Cyber security. That's HFE. Or is it organizational social? That could span depending on where it's going.
There's a couple where it could just kind of fit in wherever it is.
I suggest educational goes in training.
Okay. Yeah, I also believe that is true, right?
Though there's an argument, education and training are not necessarily the same thing, but I think we should fit it under the umbrella.
Environmental design. That's
organizational and social.
That's it. Okay.
But it could be. It could be either.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Forensics is HFE, I think. See, I'm seeing a lot in HFE.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's one of my favorite domains. Where we make the most money.
Got you.
No, but actually, it's where a lot of the biggest stuff happens anyway, because that's where all your safety critical system stuff comes in.
Performance modeling. that
steel stuff from the bottom and
performance modeling training, or do you think that's more engineering?
Performance modeling, system safety and health, I would think.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's okay. Individual differences in performance. Right now, we're kind of matching up for everyone's awareness. We're matching up these technical groups here from HFES to the domains from the CIEHF side of things, just to see kind of where everything fits as like a little exercise. Macroergonomics, is that Oregon Social? Yeah. Same thing with occupational erg. Perception, performance.
Oh, virtual environments.
Domain. That's engineering. See, and that's where, like, for me, these, like, each of these slice each of the other ones. Like they both intersect each other.
Which is what makes it cool.
Wonder where safety goes.
Safety, I would put that inside system safety, personally. Sorry, was that a bit too sarcastic?
You know what? Can we pour one out just for the news story this week that didn't make it on the barrier retaining walls? I was really, I don't know who had the Twitter account when they posted that. I really don't. And so someone on our Twitter posted the retaining walls story.
Yeah, but you can't beat a good bit of retaining walls. Right, that one means
it would have been. Look, it would have been tough for us to talk about. I'm telling you now. Like when I picked that one out, I was like, oh yeah, we could talk about this. And then when I thought about it, I was like, oh geez, that would be a hard one. Please don't pick that one.
There is well, to be fair, I think we do this almost every week, isn't it? There's the stories that come out, and I do look down them and go, yes, yeah, no, that'd be fine. Ooh, that one will be challenging, or please don't pick that one. But I never say anything, because as soon as you go and turn around and say, please, you put something on Twitter said, just please don't pick this one because I've got no idea what I'm talking about, you just know that everyone's going to go,
do it.
Yeah. So I don't say anything. So,
yeah.
I just realized I haven't changed my t-shirt either. Oh, I'm so badly prepared.
It's okay. I'm right there with you, man. Like we're, it's a Thursday night. We're okay. I think we're in good company. You can wear your shirt. I can wear my hoodie.
Cool. Yeah. I had a first experience last night for the first time in a while. Have you ever played bingo?
I have played bingo.
Yeah, I hadn't until last night.
Oh.
It's like, so it was very much a learning experience. And
oh geez. That reminds me of a skit. Have you ever seen the television program Impractical Jokers? No. Okay, so the premise is that there's four guys, and they all go out and kind of challenge each other to do pranks. And whenever somebody fails to do a prank, they kind of get a mark against them. And at the end of the show, they are forced to do a punishment. The person who loses, who has kind of failed the most at these prank challenges, and they're harmless fun in a lot of cases, right? They're like, asking people questions that are uncomfortable, or like it's never really putting anybody in danger. And so that's why I like it. But there's this one episode where a guy lost, and his punishment was to go to bingo, and after the first 5 numbers, say bingo after every number was called. And they had the person who was checking the cards come out to him every time, and the person who was checking the cards was in on it, and so were the people up on the stage, but everybody else in the room was not in on it. So like all the aging individuals who take bingo very seriously were getting very, very upset at this person.
I can imagine. I was sat next to a lady who I'd met for the first time last night, and I sort of said, "Oh, this is my first time at bingo, and it'll be all right, it'll be okay." And they start. So you obviously get the book with the however many things on it, and they start calling out the numbers, and I'm like, right, okay, so it's a searching task, isn't it? You got to search across and find the number, dab the number, fine, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm trying to find these numbers, and the people beside me had got them. So I was like, God, these guys are pros. And the one beside me going, you need to be quicker than that. Look, you missed that one, and starts dabbing my sheet as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're finding them so quickly. She's like, well, it's easy. And I'm like, well, it's not, because I can't see them. And it was then that she sort of highlighted, and I don't know why I didn't see this, that all the numbers like 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30 are all in the columns. And so you just have to find go to the right one across the top and down. It took me a full game to get that. I just thought they were all like amazing at pattern recognition. But it just turns out it was actually quite simple, and I was just being a moron. But by the end of it, I won 30 quid, so £30. So I was very happy with that. So,
you know what? Hang on. Did you say that you won or no?
Yeah, I won.
You did. Okay, great.
Yeah. So it cost us. I think we worked out we spent £29 on the bingo books and the dabber pens that you have to have, and things like that. Because it was me, my wife, and my daughter who went, and that cost like £29. And so because I won £30, it turns out we made £1.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still quids up.
Hey, you're yeah. I mean, you know what? You made money off of a fun experience, so I think that's a win.
So and now that we've obviously passed our initial training, then 2 weeks' time is the next one. So so we'll be back. It was quite nice. It was quite a fun bit of things to do.
I'm so glad you had fun playing bingo. Bingo's a fun game. It gets a lot of stigma, I guess, with sort of some of, like I said, the older folks that play it. But I mean, really, like some people play it so seriously.
Yeah. Yes.
And take it really, really, like you were saying, punching other people's cards. Now, did you get one of the threefers? The ones with the three the 3 cards on it, right? So it's like it's a stack of 3.
Oh, this was 1, 2, 3. This is 5.
Okay, so you went in pretty hard for the first time. You went a 5 for.
Yeah, no, it was quite intense, but no, it was fun. I think it was probably quite expensive for what we did, but hey, there we go. Quick shout out to Tony, who's just waved at us through Facebook. So Tony being my younger brother.
Hi, Tony. I feel like I'm meeting your whole family through our live streams.
Well, yes, that's true. It's I don't think you'll ever meet you would never meet my mum through this, because she doesn't have a Facebook account. I don't know how people live without a Facebook account anymore. But I think my mum just lives vicariously through my dad's Facebook account, because my dad will sit there, and if we put photos on or anything like that, he'll then show her the photos. So,
hey, I think
I don't think my dad's ever jumped in on this either, so which is probably for the best.
Let's see. Really quick, I just want to say that I think this blurb maybe could be tightened up a little bit.
I just read quicker. I'm not a fan of the last paragraph. I think we could bin the entire last paragraph.
Let's kill it and throw it down here as like I have been meaning to put like a loose rounds, right? Like something that doesn't necessarily fit.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a good place to put that.
You know what I think we should do, right? I've been just seeing, we've got these categorized in these 5 things. I want to create almost like a table that has the title and the subtitles in, because I think they are really, really neat. Because I've just started to sort of use that whole, the aging and children's issue. In fact, children's issue. So, yeah, no, I really like that. And so then we can put, them titles in one column, and then the second column is where we can put all of our notes. And therefore, we can then just use it time after time. But I'm going to put it in there as what I mean, if this will let me do it. So,
did I just steal your point? Because I feel like that's a great point to make. This one here.
Where have you put it?
It's in personnel.
Oh, no, like that. Good one. Yeah, not like that.
Children's issues. See, yeah, I mean, this I like the way this is organized, because it does stretch us to sort of think about some of these other things. This round. Okay, so I'm gonna take one more look at that blurb here. For everyone sticking around, we do have about 10 minutes before we actually start our live show. So thank you for sticking around with us.
I wasn't meant to do that. Oh, there we go.
Whoa!
Scary. No, it's back now. It's okay.
Dude. We just had not only Georgetown Masters Quality, Safety, and Leadership like our tweet, but we also had we also had buttplug.io peach emoji plug emoji open source sex tech liking our tweet.
Of course. Why wouldn't we?
So that is an awesome like.
I've got a confession to make.
Yeah. Do you own that Twitter account? Is that
no?
You thought you were on the K Sharp one, and
yeah, I liked it through the wrong account. But no, I've been moonlighting on another podcast.
Oh, have you?
I have. I did an interview, and to be honest, I'd completely forgotten about it. But I got interviewed by Ian Peterman, who runs the Peterman design firm out there in the States, and he runs a podcast called The Conscious Design. And so I interviewed him ages ago, and because he put a book out on conscious design, and so he asked if he could interview me, and so we did that, and so that went live apparently a couple of hours ago.
Yeah, I see it.
Which actually, what was quite neat, and something I might have to, I'm all about stealing other people's good ideas. Is he then, or one of his team then emailed me saying, "It's now live, great, da 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 da." He's if you want to tweet about it, then here's a pre-formatted tweet with all the links and stuff, so you can just cut and paste it into your thing. Here's some graphics and all. I was like, oh, that's verging on prepared. I like that. So
the pre-formatting.
Yeah, well, just the giving your guests the everything there, so they don't have to think about writing a tweet or an Instagram post, and they give me a Facebook and Instagram tweet, most of the main ones, and so I could just go, if I wanted to, I could just cut and paste it in, and it would be done. Which is an idea that I might just have to steal.
Yeah.
So, can you see in the notes now where I put the table in below your loose rounds?
I can see it. Yeah, I do.
So
yeah,
I was wondering, not for this one because of what it is, but we could just put our notes into that right-hand side column, and therefore you got the stuff at the left-hand side which will be there as a constant prompt.
Right.
So just for the titles, which because almost just running through the titles, you could pick out different bits that would be useful. But also that these notes in there, and then actually we could put in. There we go. Because if you didn't.
Loose rounds. Yeah, there you go.
I
like that format. What I'll need to do is I need to revisit the automation. So we have now our show notes automated.
Yes,
mostly. So I need to revisit that. But I think for now, we can kind of copy that, paste that in. Because I mean, we kind of did away with the supplemental articles anyway.
Yeah. Well, but even then, you could still link them through if we had supplemental articles.
Right.
So I think this just gives us potential structure for being able to what we're talking about in terms of personnel, aging, children issues. Then we can just fill out notes.
Yeah.
And then if we need to use them links to work out actually what they actually mean, then that's also there. Anyway, that's thoughts for the next one, because we've already done all of this stuff.
We have, and yeah, I'm looking for like maybe some additional topics that we could talk about here. I think we have enough. I think, we can certainly banter back and forth. And I think, let's see here. Oh yeah, I was going to look at the blurb here.
Oh, I meant to go and look at the video actually because I saw the video on the.
Oh yeah, go watch the video.
Okay, let's do that. Was I going to do it on
ultrasonic transducers?
Oh god! Stop!
Oh wow, that's very loud.
What the hell are those?
XR.
Wow, that's also very loud.
It's oh, of course, because it's coming through YouTube and it's the same thing. Right, skip ads, go away. Mouth haptics in. Okay. Oh, they look, wow, they're intense. Actually, I was at Cardiff University the other day at their AI and robotics lab, and they've got some helmet-mounted systems or head-mounted systems like the Quest, but they've also got an add-on system that gives them an array of sensors, but around the forehead, around the cheeks, and that, which is supposed to give you really good measurements for mental workload, and I think it's all through galvanic skin response. I haven't ever played with it yet. But looked, consider it was just a bolt-on that could then synchronize with whatever it is you're doing. Seemed to be a really neat way of doing it. So I'm hoping to play with that at some point too.
Oh, no, don't do that. Don't yawn.
Sorry. I know.
Oh, high energy.
I didn't mean to do that. It's only because this week's been a really long week. We found a bucket of money to be bid for on last Friday, last Thursday, but it was like up to £6 million worth of money. So it was like, whoa, that's like worth gunning for. But I didn't pick it up until Sunday, and it had to be in on Wednesday, as in yesterday. And so this whole expression of interest thing. So basically 1,500 words on some amazingness that we want to do. And so I had to get a team together, but everyone was really good. But it meant lots of late nights this week to get all this done. Hence why I'm feeling a bit looking forward to the end of the week.
Yeah, same. I am very excited to be so Monday night is when I'm hoping to be done with everything in terms of so we have a couple things going on here at the podcast, at the lab, really, and some fun new things going on at the lab too, and there's a lot of stuff going on over the next couple of weeks while I'm out that I need to plan and schedule, and like I said, I have that. I have oh shoot, I was gonna do an update on the mask, but I don't have it in here. I guess I could go run and grab it. There's 3 minutes till, but that's okay. I'll post pictures or something.
Post show?
Yeah, post show. I could go do it. That's right. Stick around for the post show. And then so I have his costume that we're working on. We still need to paint the armor and really get him used to actually being in all this. I think once we get everything on, he's going to be like, no, I want out. And it's going to be all for nothing. We'll get 2 pictures in the hotel room, call it done, type of thing. Maybe he'll be more, this is my one more thing this week, so I'm going to stop. But so there's that. And then I have work stuff that I'm trying to make sure, because I'm gone for 2 weeks. I'm trying to make sure that all my stuff is in alignment before I leave.
That's very, very conscious of you, very responsible with you.
I have checklists on checklists on checklists, and just while we're in the pre-show, I have my medication journey. I recently was bumped up to a higher dosage of the medication I'm currently using to treat ADHD, and I think it's working better, although I needed prior authorization for it, and now there are some things in which the service that I'm getting them from are no longer going to be able to prescribe them after a certain point in time. So it's like, it might be working. I don't know. There's a lot, but the thing I wanted to mention is that, like, it's going to run out right before we leave, and so like I'm going to need to get a refill. Can I do that in another state? I don't know. It's just a whole mess. So we'll see. But that's why I'm getting all my ducks in a row before we leave.
Yeah, I was going to say, could you not go to them and say, look, you're going on holiday, can you get a refill now?
With controlled substances, no. Yeah.
Well, that's unsporting of them.
Yeah, because they think I'm going to go and sell it. All right. It's just about time, so hang out with us. We are going to be right back. We're going to start this show. It's going to be a good one on me dropping stuff all over myself. All right, we'll be right back right after this.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
What's going on, everybody? This is episode 246. We're recording this episode live on May 19th, 2022. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Good evening, Nick, and hello from the UK.
Hello from the UK to me, I guess, because you're in the UK and I'm here. Hello from the US. We got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about VR researchers and how they have found a way to potentially simulate the feel of things on your lips. And later, we're going to answer some questions from the community, really, about lucrative fields in UX or human factors. We're also going to be talking about your ideal work environment and applying to UX research jobs at high-profile companies, well-known companies, big tech companies. We'll say that. But first, today, we got some programming notes for you all, or a community update. Just over the next couple of weeks, I wanted to let everybody know what the plan is. Next week, Human Factors Cast is going to have some ergonomics and human factors conference coverage that, Barry was gracious enough with his time to sit down with me to talk about EHF. We also have some, clips from folks who went to the event and are, those will be kind of stitched in. So do want to mention, though, our patrons are getting the full interviews with those folks that went to the conference. Barry was nice enough to share those with our patrons as kind of added value. So that's next week. Following that, we're going to be off on the 2nd of June. And then on the 9th of June, we'll be back. So really, we'll be gone for 2 weeks, but you'll only see us gone for 1 week. That's what it comes down to. Barry, I got to know what's going on over at 1202.
Well, as you just mentioned, I finally got out of this hiatus of not putting any content out. I've finally learned how to put video content together in a sort of meaningful way. And so on Monday, the Ergonomics Conference our coverage will drop, where we've been talking to 5-6 different people who went and were part of the organization. And as you quite rightly said, the full interviews from each one of them interviews the patrons will get. But this will drop on Monday, and I'm quite excited because that's coming up. But we've also got another interview that's happening tomorrow, one that we've been teasing about for a while, and I'm not going to mention exactly who it is, just in case it all falls through again like it did last time. But I'm really excited to be able to get some of these in the can. Everybody who spoke to me for EHF coverage, which is obviously a really short interview compared to what I usually do, they promised to do full interviews as well, so I'm quite looking forward to them getting underway.
Yeah. So wait. You're telling me that you have EHF coverage and we have EHF coverage? How are we making sure that there's no overlap, Barry? It's almost like we made this a collaborative, synergistic effort.
They're very big words for saying we actually spoke to each other, aren't they?
Yeah, we talked to each other and made sure that there was no overlap. Okay, yep. That's it. All right. Hey, well, we're going to get into this part of the show that we like to call Human Factors News. That's right. This is where we break down all things human factors. You all pick the news stories. We didn't pick it this week. I don't know. Barry, what is the story this week?
So the story this week that you kind of nudge people towards rather than some of the other ones was VR researchers have basically figured out how to simulate the feel of kisses. So a modified VR headset can create the sensation of touch, either on a user's lips or even inside their mouths. Researchers from the Carnegie Mellon University Future Interfaces Group have modified an off-the-shelf virtual reality headset so that it recreates a sensation of touch in and around a user's mouth, finally fulfilling virtual reality's inevitable one true purpose. We are generally used to, obviously, handheld controllers that vibrate, and most consumer-ready virtual reality devices ignore senses like taste, like smell and touch, and focus on visuals and sound, presumably because it's kind of the easiest thing to do at the moment. It's enough to make virtual reality experiences far more compelling than they were decades ago, but not really enough to truly fool the brain into thinking that what your eyes are seeing is possibly a real-life experience, that you're fully immersed in it. You might not be able to reach out and feel realistic fur on a virtual dog just yet, but experience the sensation of drinking water from a virtual drinking fountain could be just around the corner, in addition to other experiences that presumably don't require that much imagination. The researchers upgraded what appears to be a Quest 2 headset with an array of ultrasonic transducers that are all focused on the user's mouth, and it works without the need for additional resources or any other hardware set up around the wearer. They create the feeling of touch on the user's lips, teeth, and even their tongue while the mouth is open. The transducers can do more than just simulate a gentle touch. By pulsing them in specific patterns, they recreate the feeling of an object sliding or swapping across the lips, or persistent vibrations such as the continuous splashing of water when leaning down to sip from a virtual drinking fountain. So, Nick, can you see the potential uses of adding lip haptics to your Quest?
Yeah, lip-controlled devices, clearly. Look, I'll be honest, I totally missed the in the mouth part when reskimming this story, and so I kind of lost it back here. Anyway, I think what was going on here is the authors were very careful to word this as specific patterns across the lips, like splashing water. I mean, we all know what they really mean here and sort of what the application of this is. With that being said, teledildonics is one of my favorite words. This is that.
Very good.
And I do love VR stuff, and I love the way in the different ways in which we try to mask our senses and, I don't know, bolt on added functionality within VR to mask those certain senses. With something like the lips, those are a very sensitive body part, and so there's going to be perhaps more care and attention that needs to be paid to the device actually stimulating the lips in these patterns to emulate real world situations. Barry, I am curious what your initial sort of thoughts on this article are.
Well, my initial thought was, well, if we start with the lips, then clearly where do you stop? We've got to get a bit more grown up about this, I think. It is a really interesting technology, and you know, from a science and technology perspective, it's clearly got a lot of application. And I think we'll probably talk about how, you know, this is clearly just a start of doing more things. But isn't it weird how the application of all of these sort of things turn to sex-based applications first? You know, that's where like things like this, it's automatically gone, not because of the amazing technology thing that they're doing, but it's how it can be used in that way. I just find that that the child in me finds that very, very amusing.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I mean, sex sells, right? And so when you think about sort of how can we exploit these new technologies to sort of appeal to people, I think that's sort of the next logical step, right? Let's break this down. I think, you know, we tried something last week on the show where we kind of talked about it from a variety of different I guess slices of human factors, whether that's like domain areas or, you know, traditionally like the technical groups. But I think we have a good way to go forward. Let's talk about the people behind this. And I think, you know, this is more of a discussion, Barry. Who are the types of people that might use this type of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we sort of get into this, isn't it? And it's without, I guess, where do we want to keep the rating of this podcast? But it is, it's clearly got a whole. Okay, we'll keep going with that theme. So there's clearly some obvious application that we're going to allude to in a very childish manner all the way through this podcast. But it's that if we can make the leap from not just talking about lips, but assuming that it's going to go further, that you're going to get that haptic immersive capability is pretty much getting there, and so there is that broader application. I mean, if you've seen Ready Player One, this is kind of us getting really down that line. There's always been a lot of criticism with VR and AI to a certain extent that that you're only fooling some of the senses, and this takes us that one step further. So if there's anybody who's going to be involved in working in immersive environments, I mean the metaverse is now such a thing, but then so was Second Life. This sort of thing would have been equally applicable within sort of like that Second Life, anything where you're trying to get that full immersion in there. So it could be we talked during in episode 240 around artificial intelligence providing companionship. Is this just the next step of interacting with that? And because that's what led me down to that thinking of, are we talking about people interacting with people? Are we talking about people interacting with artificial intelligence or just bots? They don't necessarily have to be fully artificially intelligent. So are you talking about, is it a true human machine interaction, or is it a human machine human interaction? Which I thought was interesting, because you could use it. We have these things where if you're away from your partner for a long time, so you're working away, or you may be posted away, or you're doing the sort of job maybe working on like oil platforms, or something that is really remote, like working out on ships, then will this actually allow connectivity between you and your loved ones and things like that?
Intimacy, yeah.
Even if just like at the slightly less blue end of the scale, kissing your partner goodnight before you go to bed. What would that do to repair some of them relationships? I think it'd be quite interesting.
Or like even being able to like virtually kiss my son's forehead as I'm out at a business trip or something like that. That'd be awesome. I would love that. I think there's a lot to be said for the people that would use this, and there's obviously the applications that we keep alluding to, but there's a lot of practical ones as well. And that kissing your loved ones goodnight is one of those examples. But I think there's also sort of, we historically on the show have sort of shied away from talking about VR games and gaming just in general, because it's kind of it's an easy fit, VR and games. But there's this whole immersive storytelling aspect, right, that we can sort of think about with this type of technology. If there were stories built around falling in love with, like you said, a digital avatar, or sorry, not avatar, a digital agent, then you'd have this whole other interaction that opens up a whole swath of societal issues, really. I mean, or not societal issues, I should say, societal questions that need to be answered about, fidelity and all that stuff. So I mean, think about, from a gaming perspective, you're like falling in love with an NPC or something along those lines, and you're able to actually kiss them. That might be one way. You have virtual books in here. Are you thinking something similar for that?
Yeah, I'd sort of, as a I love reading books. It is my sort of guilty pleasure that I don't get enough time to do. And there was the idea that I don't know if you ever used to use them, but you get the book that starts off with, you read a bit, and then you can make a decision about where you go. And if you chose one decision, you turn to page 342. If you made another decision, you turn to page 463, for example. And you can have that sort of the adventure side of things. So could this actually take us down that route? So it's not a game as in a game, but it's an adventure, it's a journey.
Sure.
And so would this actually allow you to go on one of them journeys in a virtual way, so that you've got that immersive storytelling element, that you've got a certain amount of interaction over, but it's not a game, it's that sort of thing, and it's all about the immersion, which this technology would sort of send you there.
Yeah, it's almost like passive storytelling, right? So there's active storytelling, which is more like video games, where you are directing the sort of character that you are playing into certain actions, right? i.e., kissing an NPC. The virtual books and other applications I can think of as sort of this passive storytelling with you as a passive participant watching what's going on around you. That might be a sense that you might need in some specific application areas. Just saying. We're going to skirt it all night, folks. All right.
It's going to be a long evening.
All right. Enough with the puns. Let's go. Next point here, Barry. You want to talk about how it might evolve?
Yeah, it's going to be, because again, this is going to be another interesting piece, isn't it? Because if you've got this sort of technology, and I think it probably fits into some of the others as well. But as you get older, the technology needs to be able to, I don't know, age with you, because you don't interact with technology the same way as you get older. So as we get older, it's going to have to evolve with us. But if the way I would use this technology would be very different to the way our children would use the technology, would be very different from the way that my parents would use the technology. So is there something there about having to work out how the different applications, how that use case would change with each individual persona? And would it be vastly different, or is my assumption just wrong? Actually, the way that we would use it is probably just very similar. It's just, I guess there's just like intensities and things that would change, but I don't know. I think there's something there around evolving use cases.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's different people that are going to use this for different reasons. I myself would use it for the kiss my family goodnight remotely, right? The other, I guess this is almost a concern, especially when we consider children being online in these really scary environments. What happens if there's a sexual predator online that is sort of manipulating these senses in some way, shape, or form? That is a serious societal question, something that we need to think about. And how do we build in protections for our children and other vulnerable populations that may not have the same judgment, the same level of judgment, or the same I guess awareness of what could be on the other end of this thing, and sort of the tactics that are being used. That's a huge question, and something that is awful to think about, but it's something that we do need to think about it in terms of protecting our children.
It is true, and I don't necessarily think we need to restrict it to children, because I mean, how much do we hear about nowadays about people being taken in online by phishing emails, spoof addresses, all that sort of stuff? This is just that one sort of step away. So there is an element around that I think that we need to think about. So should we just dive into talking about the organizational and social issues that this could evolve?
Yeah, well, I think we're starting to open up that door of talking about who might be affected by this, that whole deception piece of who's on the other side of it, right? And this is a larger issue with virtual spaces, virtual environments, avatars, agents, all this stuff. How do you know if who you're talking to is who you're talking to? Does it matter? All these questions, right? And so we're starting to peel open this social, societal question. So let's talk about it, right? So I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me is I already kind of talked about it, but the idea of you don't know who is on the other end of this thing most of the time, or I shouldn't say most of the time, but it's possible that you don't know who's at the other end of this thing, what their goals are, what their I don't know. There's a lot to think about here. Do you want to talk about anything specific here?
Well, I think for me, there's a worry bee going on at the back of my mind about the more we rely on technology to provide that sort of relationship mechanism. Are we just going to lose the ability for physical relationships, because actually having a relationship online is just easier? So we go back to that, the previous episode we did where we talked about an AI companionship. And we both had a very brief go at downloading that avatar based thing.
Very short affair.
Yeah, well, no, but it was one of them things that I sort of read up a bit more about some other people who had sort of relationships with them, and it was really interesting that the more people who got involved with them, the less they wanted it. They were bothered about interacting with real people, because that you had this avatar, this AI based mechanism that was providing all the fulfillment you needed, in terms of they were never going to argue with you, they were never going to give you any bad words or anything like that. It was just all the positive, reaffirming stuff. And there was some other negative things happening around that. But when you combine that with this type, are we then just stepping away even further from those people who really probably do need physical, real relationships, as we would call them? Are we stepping away from them? Is it just another reason for them not to come out of seclusion? So that's a bit of a negative view, but there is a flip side to that, I think. And we've sort of touched upon it already around, would it actually keep relationships alive that wouldn't necessarily survive over long distance and things like that? So as you've quite rightly said, if you're going away on going away on business or on holiday or something like that, being apart from the family, being able to kiss the children goodnight, being able to kiss your partner goodnight, will that provide an element of that, which that would be a really positive step, wouldn't it? That'd be a really nice, really decent step forward.
Yeah, it's almost connecting us in some of those ways in which we can't connect physically, right? And this goes for other applications outside of this technology here, right? I know there's others that have been sort of working on technology that allows for the ability to hug others virtually, right? Through like a inflatable pillow. Think Baymax from Big Hero 6, right? So there's other technologies being developed that will get at some of those other senses, at some of those other experiences. And I think that desire to explore these technologies really does stem from this world in which is very different from the way in which we evolved. And when we evolved, right, we kind of think about these close-knit familial society structures where it takes a village to raise a child. And that's true, right? Your village is your family, and you have this really close, intimate connection with them. In today's society, we have sort of this interesting mix of people emigrating from certain locations because of cost of living, because of opportunities, because of one thing or another, and we don't have that close-knit societal structure that we once had as we were evolving. And so to me, this is a way to patch that. If I could, hug my mom and dad, virtually, through, the other technology that I'm talking about here, that brings me a little bit closer to them, but without the physical distance. I don't know. There's just a lot to think about here, right?
Well, there is, because there's another point that you made, and further down, which I've just stolen and brought up here. One of the things that really brought out in COVID was the amount of people who went into hospital, and the last thing that they thought that they were going to see before they were put into a medical coma, or unfortunately before they lost their lives, they had you couldn't go into hospital and be with them because of the obviously infection risk. So the best that they could do was actually try and hold up an iPad or a tablet for you to have a video call with them. I mean, would this have been something just a bit more to allow you to kiss your loved one that one last time, or just to give them a hug of reassurance before they get going to what must have been really scary and a really horrible experience? So this, in terms of that type of thing, would have been really, really empowering, I think,
right.
or really comforting.
Right. I do want to focus on sort of the bringing people together aspect of it, because I feel like we really, I don't want to say exhausted the conversation, but we really did. We were thorough in the episode that we did on living our lives in the metaverse. We kind of touched on a lot of these similar topics about, well, what does it mean to lose these physical relationships? What does it mean to do, how do we have bathroom breaks and all that stuff? Go listen to that episode if you want more of that discussion. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we need to consider from society. And again, a lot of these sort of echo that conversation. So go listen to that if you want to hear more of that. I think we should jump into we have training here, and this is interesting because when you think about this technology, you don't necessarily think about training. How do you train to kiss, or how do you train to use this device to feel something on your lips or in your mouth? You mentioned calibration here, but yeah, beyond that, it's probably an intuitive experience.
Well, one would like to think. I mean, the way that we develop things now, your phone, your whatever we're using, you generally don't use the book. In fact, you don't get a book anymore. The idea that whatever you have, it should be intuitive. You should be able to pick it up and use it straight away. But if you're going to, I mean, obviously with the one that we've seen, and if you go and look on the YouTube, it bolts onto what we believe is the Quest, and it just works. But I'm assuming it's going to need a level of calibration, because people have different face shapes, they have different face colors, they have different pigmentation, augmentation, what their lips look like, all that sort of stuff. So there's going to be an element of that which is going to need to be very easy to use. So for anybody who's used a Quest before, when you put it on for the first time, it does lead you through a calibration process. And actually, I think it does it relatively well. So what more are we going to need to be able to use this type of system? And as it gets more expansive, so if we're looking at it in terms of maybe gloves, if you're looking at maybe whole suits, putting them on, then you're going to be able to. Presumably, it's not just going to be something you just be able to take on and off. Simply, you will have to put it on in a way to make sure it's connected, you don't break it and things like that, because if it's anything like me, I'll probably stand on it and break it. And maintenance, how do you maintain such a system? Is it, given what it is it going to need cleaning? Is it going to need how do you do that without breaking all the sensors and things like that? So I think there's all them sort of elements of training that you have to think about. But then flipping that on its head is, will it become a vector for training itself? So there's a lot of work being going on in simulation and all that sort of stuff to provide training to the military, training now to blue light services, first responders, things like that. Will this type of thing be able to give a level of training there, but for more immersive simulation training? So one of the other things that popped into my mind when we were talking about health earlier was, actually, we know that remote surgery has been a thing in healthcare. So where surgeons who necessarily can't get anywhere can do this remote surgery. That combined with this idea of teleexistence, the idea about you being able to basically inhabit another body, a robot body, to do what you want to do, then that's going to become a big thing here for like remote surgery, and take that to the next level. Are you going to be able to use this type of sensor technology to give you an even better feel experience for doing that sort of remote operation, be it surgery, be it in another safety critical domain? Could be the nuclear industry, for example, and things like that. So I think there's a lot there actually around training when you look at it both sides of the coin, that I think is going to be quite a real game changer.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. For VR in general, what I'm just asking, Barry. I'm just asking the questions here. What sort of professions need to use their mouth on a daily basis that they might need to do remotely? I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from, and just trying to be musicians.
Oh, there you go.
You didn't see that one
Thank
coming,
you.
did you?
Thank you.
Win.
You saved the show. Look, yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. There are some instances in which using this as a training tool for things like being a musician would be really valuable, especially when you don't maybe have the instrument in front of you. You could imagine what that might feel like on your lips and your tongue as you're trying to play something like
Yep.
a saxophone, right? And obviously it'd be easier if you had something physical in front of you to use, but that's probably the next best thing, especially as you're trying to use your mouth to make these sounds. And I don't know. I think that's a great application, and you really saved that question. Thank you,
Thank
Barry.
you.
I'm really glad you picked up on what I was asking there.
And another one, first aid training.
There you go. Yeah, CPR.
CPR.
Yeah.
See, we don't have to live in the gutter all the time.
No, we don't. That's not where this show lives most of the time. So, okay, we talked about training. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the human factor side of this, right? I want to jump straight into SMP, sensation perception, because I think there's something really unique about the lips that sort of exists on the rest of the body, but maybe I'm talking about the sensation and sort of distance between the receptors on the lips in the body. If you think about we're looking at like maybe 2 millimeters between receptors. I think I'm reading that correctly. Anyway, there's a chart here, but if you think about the distance between 2 receptors on any part of your body, the lips are an erogenous zone, which means they are, very close together. There's a lot of sensation. You can tell whether your finger is here versus here, and I'm just moving my finger along my lips very, very, um, not a far distance between the 2 points, and you can tell those, right? And those are the same thing that you feel on your fingertips, right? If you were to take something and touch the tip of your fingertip, there's a very high resolution of touch there. And so when you're starting to develop these systems, you need to be able to take in those resolutions of your sensory neurons to sort of emulate some of these things, right? It needs to be a very higher resolution than other things on your body, like your back. You can feel 2 points on your back. The distance between those points can be really big, actually, like 6 inches before you think about sort of them as 2 different points on your back, right? You put 2 fingers on your back, move them about 6 inches apart, and you'd still feel them as 1 point. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. So there's a lot of sensation perception going on here. What are some of the other human factors, key takeaways there?
So for me, one of the biggest hitters is going to be the anthropometric fit of, the shape, the fit of the, whatever it is that you're using. So if we go into that element of, we're looking more of the suit and things like that, that sort of event. But even just with the application we're talking about just on the face, how is it, is it adding that extra weight? Is it going, how do you size it for different people? How do you make sure that, one of the big things that's coming out at the moment with a lot of research, which I think possibly a lot of us have been quite guilty of, not truly realizing that a lot of the anthropometric data is all based on, 19% based on males, and there's not very much female anthropometric data in the data that we're using as standards for build, and that needs change. And if this type of application is going to work, we need to really get on with developing better anthropometric tables for this type of thing. So it's the VR itself doesn't have, it's virtual reality. You can be whatever you want to be, you can do whatever you want to do, but the physical kit that you're going to be wearing really needs to fit well. It needs to not only be fit with who you are now, but as we spoke about earlier, people age, their body changes and things like that. So there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff around the actual fit of the physical equipment that I think it's going to have to be robust. It's going to have to be well calibrated, and it's going to have to fit. I think there's probably a lot of other stuff we could get into with the engineering side of things, but do you think there's any sort of system safety and health things that we should be considering with this?
Yeah, I think sort of the big thing for me is, at first glance, right? It's like, what do we have to consider? There's sort of this this device that pushes air against your mouth. What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, right? Because there's there could be a lot, I think, that we can consider from health. You have in here mental health, and I do want to talk about that, right? And this goes alongside everything that we talked about with the society and cultural discussions that might need to happen around this technology being implemented. So with that, there can be sort of this loneliness that people experience. And does this more immersive technology patch that? Does it make it better, or does it make it worse? So that's something that we can think about, right? We can also think about sort of the example of kissing your child goodnight. Does that make it worse? it might feel like it's better, but does it make it worse because it's not the real thing? So there's a lot of other questions in terms of mental health that we have to think about. Barry, I'm curious on your take on the safety and health perspective here.
Yeah, I think there's I guess it's an extension of the mental health piece to a certain extent. Is we sort of alluded to it earlier. Is this actually providing a healthy relationship? Now, I think there's an element of what does a healthy relationship look like with an artificial intelligent entity, a bot, an NPC, that sort of thing. It doesn't exist, but yet you're investing, or you could be investing a whole lot of time, effort, feelings, love, whatever, within a relationship that it doesn't exist. And then the application of this technology just intensifies that, because there is much less ability to delineate between the two. But then the flip side of that is, does it matter? Actually, if you're getting a, one of the things that we find destructive within people is not having loving relationships, not being alone rather than being in a good relationship. Is this another way of people who maybe can't, or for whatever reason don't get into good relationships? This will provide one for them and actually make it a bit more meaningful and a bit more engaging. I think it'd be really interesting to see future research into that. And so if anybody's listening who wants a research topic, there you go, you can have that one for free. But then I think the other bit of it that I'm quite interested in as well is, if we do take this further and we do the implementation of it in, for, like, say, like we talked about bodysuits and things like that, how do we link them together? How do we deal with there's going to be some really basic stuff around if we're in these suits, how do we make sure we don't electrocute ourselves? If these type of sensory things, if we to believe what we're told, they'll become quite addictive. So you'll spend more time in the immersive world than in the real world, because they just feel so immersive. So what about the basic things of remembering to do things? And you're not wanting to come out and do real world activity. So yeah, and I think there's a lot there to play on, but it's I don't necessarily want to be too down on this thing, because I think this is clearly a massive step forward, and a lot of the things I think we perceive as issues that we normally bring up in maybe a safety and health piece, I think a lot of it will be at the forefront of the people who are developing it. But I think there's still a long way to go.
You'd hope. We did talk a lot about those physical sort of issues in that metaverse episode. Again, I'm going to plug that episode. It's such a good episode for us to talk about in relation to this. I do have sort of one loose round as we're kind of wrapping up this story here. We've been skirting around the applications that I think all of us go to straight away. Barry saved the day with the music example, but I do want to bring up a couple of other examples that were sort of illustrated in this video that the researchers shown. And this is Future Interfaces Group on YouTube. You can go watch the video yourself. But just for everyone's awareness, there are other experiences that this might be practical. And this really comes down to sort of that immersive storytelling that we were talking about. So whether it's gaming or sort of these passive environments in which things are happening to you, there's other sensations that you can emulate on your lips that are, less scandalous. So let's talk about them, right? Like things like rain. So if you're, walking through an environment and there's rain, you might be able to feel some of those on your lips as you look up, right? Or feel something in your mouth, like raindrops coming down from the sky. There's also the act of smoking, putting an object in your mouth and sort of inhaling toxic chemicals and then blowing that out of your mouth. You can do that too, right? Spider webs. If you're walking through a spooky, you might feel a spider face. Again, this thing is mounted right below the headset, and so it can probably target not just your lips but the rest of your face too, which also has a very high sensitivity when we bring that back to sensation perception. There's other things like shrapnel. So if you're in like a combat zone in a war game, or if you are breaking boxes is the example that they have, but you might be able to feel something hit your face as you're going through an environment with lots of debris. There's also toothbrushing, so you can brush your teeth. You can sort of emulate that sensation. And then there's also wind, right? So you might be able to feel the wind on your face through this device that's mounted to the bottom, right? So you're not getting anything from your nose up, I guess, but that might be enough to sort of give that sensation of being on a windy terrace or something along those lines, right? So there are other applications. We've been skirting around the scandalous ones. Barry, any other loose rounds for you before we wrap this up?
Only one. I don't want to be doing the spider webs one. I don't like spiders, so that wouldn't work for me. No, I think it is a really interesting technology. I really like the idea of what they've done with it. I think it's going to set an interesting starting point for where we go next with it. I think the idea of the next sensors that they build will be the true measure of where the growth of it's going to be. But yeah, good work, well done.
Well done. Thank you to our patrons this week and everyone on Twitter who thought it was a great idea for us to talk about this. And thank you to our friends over at Gizmodo for our news story again this week. If you want to follow along, we do post links to the original articles on our weekly roundups on our blog. You can also join us on our Discord for more discussion on these stories, where we don't necessarily have to keep it PG. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to see what's going on in the Human Factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast, our honorary Human Factors Cast staff, patrons Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you keep the show running. Seriously, you keep the lights on for us, and that extends to our digital media lab as well. We have one of those. I haven't mentioned that on the show tonight. Anyway, we have one of those. It keeps the light on over there, too. I do want to bring up Patreon has some other cool stuff that you might not know about if you are not one of our Human Factors Cast crew over there. We have full audio versions of every show. So Barry and I sit down every Thursday night for 2 hours? Yeah, 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. And all of that is packaged up as a separate podcast for all of our patrons. So if you're unable to watch the live shows, we do the audio version for our patrons. There's also weekly Q&As. This is a great opportunity to ask us questions directly and get some targeted feedback. Especially, it kind of elevates in the line above our Discord. We kind of look at that first and say, okay, who's coming here? What's being said? There's also early access to the show. We do post our show just a couple hours early over there. It's not too much of early access, but if you're looking for something Thursday night, you might get it at like 6 p.m. Pacific instead of 9 p.m. Pacific. So that's another consideration. There's also bonus content over there. So things like our EHF coverage that's coming out next week. Our patrons will get all that stuff, including the full interviews with all the people who called in and talked to Barry. They'll get all those as one separate piece. So there's plenty of reasons to become a patron. First and foremost, you do help the show. And if that's your goal, then awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If you want something in return, we have all this stuff for you too. Consider it. Anyway, I think it's time we get into this next part of the show we like to call
It came from.
That is right. This is the part of the show called It Came From, and this is where we look all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. If you find these answers useful, no matter where you're at, watching, listening, give us a like or whatever the thing, heart. I don't know, whatever it is. It'll help other people find this stuff. And it's all word of mouth. Anyway, so let's talk about 3 tonight. We got the first one here: lucrative fields in UX research. I'm going to go ahead and expand on this and say human factors. This is by user Philosophical Razor on the UX research subreddit. They go on to write, "Hi, I'm currently in the government consulting sector. Oh, good luck. While the projects are varied and interesting, I am looking ahead for a role where the money is a little bit better. Are banks or financial institutions the best paying options, or should I be looking at tech? Appreciate any advice. Barry, what are some of the sectors with high yield salaries, and what other factors should folks maybe consider when they're looking at breaking into a new sector?"
Wow. If somebody could tell me which sectors have them, I'm quite keen to learn. I don't know. Is HF and UX the place to be going for high salaries? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I mean, I think obviously there is the whole tech piece, the social tech in particular, is very much on the up, and that mobile element is kind of there, particularly from the UX piece. But yeah, I've got to admit, with this, when it came up, I'm struggling to think of areas where you go, where you're going to go and make truly big bucks. We are a niche discipline that in safety critical industries we do get used very well, but even then it's still a struggle, I think. Yeah, so I'm going to tap out. I don't think I can give a satisfactory answer. What about you, Nick? Do you have more of an insight to me that where would you go for the big bucks?
American-based big tech companies. I mean, like, that is where you're going to find the most competitive offers, mainly because they have the money to spend. That being said, there's some other considerations that I think, you need to make, right? Especially at those big tech companies. Are they providing you a good work-life balance? Is it something that you're going to be able to maintain long-term? What kind of other benefits do they offer? A lot of them have sort of a relatively high base salary and then great benefits on top of that and great stock options on top of that. So you're not only looking at, sort of a base number, but you're looking at, if you look at that whole package, it's quite lucrative. So that's, I think, if you are looking just for money, there you go. But again, like, you need to kind of consider where you're going to enjoy working. If you enjoy working on these varied projects, if you don't have a problem with being closer to the tip of the spear, that might be for you, especially if you're maintaining a good work-life balance. That's my 2 cents. It may not be the best advice, but if you're looking for lucrative options, go with the Fang or Mang or whatever they're calling themselves now. Now that they're Meta and Netflix is out, right? Is it MAGA? I hope not.
Because you've written them acronyms down. I don't actually know what they mean.
So Fang or Mang, that's like, it used to be Facebook, Apple, I forget what the other A is, Netflix and Google.
Right. Yeah.
And now that Facebook has changed their name to Meta, F is now an M, and then the Netflix is now out, I think. And I'm not sure. I don't keep up with it.
Why is Netflix out?
Oh, have you seen their stock lately?
No. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they'd banged out.
Yeah. So I think it's. I'm just Googling it right now. I think it's MAMA, MAMAA. So you have Meta. Let's see here. Meta, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon is the other A,
Right.
and Alphabet. Right. So Google is no longer Google; it's Alphabet. So you have MAMA with 2 A's.
Very good.
There you go. Mama companies.
Every day's a school day.
Yeah. All right. Next one up here is from Shayaita on the UX research subreddit. They write, "What does your ideal work environment look like?" That's it. Barry, what is your ideal work environment look like?
Well, for me, it's so if you look at the environment in the whole, I mean, such as like what my desk is now, I like screens. I like big screens, so you're not you don't feel claustrophobic in your workspace and what you're trying to do. I like multiple screens so you can hand things off to different bits and have one for monitoring, have one for your active workspace, things like that. But taking it outside of just what I want on my desk, because it's got to have buttons and it's got to have gadgets, you've got to have access to people. Now, that could be virtually, but ideally, my ideal sort of office plan, I don't like big open plan offices, but I don't like single offices either. So I like small open plan offices, so maybe 3, 4, 5 to a room, with like sort of small teams based type thing, and lots of them, but also having other places to break out to, so you can go. So there's like conference rooms, you can go and do things like that. When you then look at some other bigger things, then in my ideal work environment, I want time, and I want the budget, and I want resources to be able to do the job properly, and not having to scrimp and skimp and save and try and do that. I mean, that's always a bit of a massive nice to have. Oh, you decide to come back now? Okay, I thought I'd bored you there. So yeah, I like to have the time, budget, resources. The other thing I think works for me, and it's something I do try and do with my team, is to have ongoing internal projects. So no matter how busy you are trying to do the external stuff, the day job, having a different project alongside what you're doing I think is really useful, because it allows you to dip into something else. It allows you to do something, and it might be pro bono work, it might be something along that. It almost doesn't matter what it is, but having something that is not purely profit driven at that time, to a change is as good as a rest. So allowing you to go to have something going on that you can go and dip into at any time. So yeah, I think that's screens and people and an appropriate size rooms works. Oh, whiteboards. I didn't put whiteboards in there. Whiteboards everywhere. You have to have whiteboards everywhere with working white pens, with whiteboard pens, and
not the ones that are kind of half dried out. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's and the squirty stuff that means you can clean your board properly, because invariably when you go back to it, you can never get everything off properly.
Right. And the proper wiping materials too, right? You need the either a rag or something,
yes.
right? Not the like chalky block. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm right there with you. For me, it's very different from yours, actually. I really do like the remote position, and I really do enjoy traveling to go to user events, and it really does sort of limit in terms of what domains I'm able to work in. I find that I can get a lot of my answers through, quick calls with people. And that's probably just the domain I'm working in, and that's fine for that. But in some, you'll need to go do more regular contextual inquiries or something like that, actually visit them in person. I can do most things from home. I really do appreciate the flexibility of having a remote position. That's what works for me. And I really love this question, because you and I differ so greatly on this, but there's no right or wrong answer to this. Everyone works differently. And so from my perspective, in terms of a physical space, I like 3 monitors. I like one big one right in the middle, and then 2 kind of offshoots that have various information on them that I might need to reference my primary workspace, right? So like if I have a Zoom meeting up, it's over here. It's over here. All my communication is on this one, right? And all my sharing is over here. So if I'm sharing my screen, I'm looking right here, because it doesn't have any of my workspace up. It's not sloppy. It's, made for sharing. And so the primary workspace being so big too, I can split the screen and look at 2 different things. Like I'm looking at you over here, and I'm looking at the notes over here. I'm looking at the audience right here, right in the lens. You see that? Looking at you.
Yeah.
So it really varies. It differs for me, right? And ideally, in this space, I share this space with both my personal stuff and my work stuff. And so for that, I need a dock that I can change modes with. By one USB-C, I plug out of my work and plug into my personal, and it switches modes in my head for me. When I'm, able to unplug my personal and put in my work, it's such a hassle to get back into. I mean, it's a hassle by unplugging and replugging it back in, but it's a hassle to go back and forth. And so I tend to stay in one mode versus the other. The other thing is that I would really like to prefer an environment confined, dark, almost kind of like a storage closet. I don't know if maybe this environment kind of reminds you of anything, like where I'm currently at. I built it because of that. I liked being confined. I don't like a lot of distractions. ADHD doesn't work for me when I have outside distractions creeping in, looking at things. And so that's the physical space, right? When you think about digital, lots of organized folders, and making sure that structure is mirrored across everything that you're using, right? So things like transcription software, document storage, information repositories, these types of things, making sure that everything kind of matches and plenty of redundant links to each of those things. So that way, if you need to find your way, you can. That's me. All right. I think we got one more. This last one's here, applying to UX research jobs at Meta. Question about my dissertation topic. This is by Bluesmaker on the UX research subreddit. This one's a really interesting one. I'm glad you pulled it, Barry. I'm soon to be a PhD of sociology looking to get into UX research. From looking at the job market, it seems that Meta is the company that seeks many recent university goals. Because of this, I'll be applying there. However, because my dissertation topic is about QAnon conspiracy theory on Twitter, I wonder if hiring managers at a social media company be concerned that I'm coming from a perspective that's highly critical of their industry. Do you think that there's any reason for concern on my part? If so, is it something that can be addressed by how I describe and talk about my dissertation research? Be interested in any related thoughts people may have. Barry, do you have any advice for folks who have conducted research maybe in the past that could conflict with a prospective employer's business goals?
So somebody who works in the defense industry and is an employer in the defense industry, yeah, I've come up across this a couple of times now. But my biggest piece of advice really is embrace it. Don't hide it. You did whatever you did, and this isn't actually just for research either. It's actually anything that's gone on in your past, I think, to a certain extent. But in terms of this particular bit around the dissertation, you obviously you conducted that research for a reason. It interested you, and that type of thing. And you've obviously learned a lot that would be helpful to the social media industry, based on what it is that your research has found out. So tell them why your work was valuable. Tell them what you've learned, and they could apply. If they were to hire you, because the research you would get. So, yeah, I mean, you must have learned some really interesting things, because I think the topic is fascinating. So tell them why it's valuable. Embrace it.
Yeah, I'm a very similar mind to you, Barry. I think, just ensure that your rationale for wanting to work there is sound. It sounds like it sounds like this person is wanting to apply there because there's availability. And is it somewhere you want to work? Just make sure in your heart of hearts where you want to be. But also, they will likely ask about something like this if they see it on your CV, resume, whatever you submit, right? And I think the framing of your answer will be critical. I think, like you said, Barry, explaining what you learned, and sort of embracing that. But then I think there's obviously skill to doing an interview, and I think the piece that I will offer, in addition to what you said, Barry, is how can you reframe it to help the company goals? I've learned all this stuff about QAnon, and therefore I think I can make changes to the company by doing XYZ because of this background that I have. That's my 2 cents on it. All right, let's just go ahead and get into this last part of the show we call One More Thing. It needs no introduction. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
So I'm going to be a bit more with it this week, and I've only got one more thing this week. So our daughter's starting her exams. So she's doing them a year early. But after our elder daughter did their exams, this leads me to reflect again. Why do we pursue such an antiquated education system? That we still, we have a bit where we get educated, then you go and do some, then you go and go to work, and you do what you do. I just don't feel now that actually the way that we deliver education in this modern society really fits the way that we live. And so I don't know. I think we should reform the entire lot. There was some really good talks that were done a couple of years ago that shows that the education system was generated around basically Victorian needs, and we haven't really moved on from that yet. Society has moved on so much, then I think we should burn it all down and start again.
Sounds like a great post-show topic, probably.
Yeah. Just makes me frustrated. As not only as a parent, but as an employer as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll save that rant for the post show. What about you, Nick? What's your one more thing?
Next week, we've alluded to it, summer hiatus, all that stuff. I'm going to the wonderful world of Anaheim, California for Star Wars Celebration. It's a Star Wars convention. I'm going to get my nerd on. And last time I went, it was a spiritual experience. It was like, I keep saying this, in some way, shape or form, but, it was when they said that, the Chewie We're Home, trailer for The Force Awakens came out, and just everyone was like in tears, and it was awesome, and everyone was on stage. I'm super excited about it. We have made the costume for our son, and it is almost complete. We're still putting on some last minute touches. It's going to be a little bit tight on time, but man, I'm excited. That's my one more thing. And that's going to be it for today, everyone. Let us know what you guys think of the news story this week. If you like this episode, enjoy some of the discussion on simulating the feel of kisses, I guess, then I'll invite you to go and listen to our episode on the metaverse, where we talk a lot about those other issues of being in VR for a long time. There's a comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community, visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, you can do a couple things. 1, leave a 5-star review. You could do that right now. Pause, whatever. Just you can finish listening. Just go 5-star review. That's fine. 2, tell your friends about us. That really helps us grow, and helps us sort of invade other people's lives. We love that. And then 3, if you do have the financial means, we do offer a lot in Patreon, and we'd love to have you join us, support the lab that way. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Mr. Barry Kirby, thanks for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about other applications for VR kisses?
If you're going to talk about kisses, then there's other people available for that. But if you want to go find me on Twitter, I'm at Baz_K, and across all my socials. But if you also want to listen to the other interviews that we've been doing, then 1202 Human Factors Podcast is where you want to go, which is at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
it
depends. All right, that was solid. Nice. I think we behaved ourselves.
I think we skirted around the edges of decency, but yes, no, I thought that was really good.
Giving ourselves a round of applause there. Yes. That was.
We didn't get arrested yet.
No, that was pretty great. And I think so. The reason. I don't know. I mean, you've been podcasting for a while too. You probably know the reason why I try to keep it relatively clean. Is at least my reasoning is because it reaches more people. Mm-hmm. Because if you mark that explicit, there are certain countries that right away, nope,
shut you off. Yeah.
And so we don't want that. And sometimes it's long lasting too, right? You do it for one episode and they shut off your whole show.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it triggers a flag and they say, nope, we're not doing that. So we try to keep it clean over here.
Which is good. It's admirable. Yeah. Your parents will be proud.
Thanks. Yeah. Who knows if they're watching tonight? I'm seeing them. I'm seeing them not next week, but the week after. For dinner.
Cool.
Which will be nice. Yeah.
I need to go north and see my parents at some. They've got a door waiting for me, so I've got to take our van up and go and pick up this UPVC door.
Oh.
That's rock and roll life. I mean, it's a 6-hour journey just to go and pick up a door and some timber. I think they used it as an excuse for me to actually go and see them. I mean,
yeah,
because we haven't seen them in a while. But when did we last see them? I can't remember. I think they came down here last time. So, anyway,
hey, really quick. Sorry. I just need to ask you, just from a programming perspective. There was like a brief moment where I dropped during one of those questions. Yes. Is it fine if I don't edit that out, or like should I edit that out?
It's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
I was awesome.
Yeah,
Didn't
I'm
miss
sure
it.
you were. I have. So it's interesting because I every week now I've gotten into the habit of resetting my router, resetting my computer right before the show, so that way there's no issues. And I'm surprised that we got that issue. Oh, and by the way, my internet service provider is awful. And
We knew this.
remember, yeah, we did know this. Remember last month when I had called somebody over? They said it's not your fault. It's, in the cables over there. Caused us big issues with the town hall. Caused us big issues on a couple episodes. Well, they came back with the bill last month and said, we're going to charge you $70 for us coming out there to tell you it wasn't your fault. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. It wasn't our fault. Why are you charging us? And they said, oh, you're right. You're right. We're going to waive that. And we're also going to send you this bullshit that you don't need in the form of like this cable top box or whatever, and it's like,
right.
So that's frustrating. But at least I'm not getting charged $70.
Yes, because that would be distressing.
Yeah, and I it got me thinking about the opt-in versus opt-out nature of things, and like how many times have they gotten away with that? Somebody didn't even realize that they got charged $70 for something. It's just on auto pay. If I hadn't like noticed a difference in price, I have notifications coming up, about certain triggers and money and stuff like that. And so it's like when I saw that come up, I was like, wait, that's way expensive.
Yeah.
Why?
No, we've had exactly the same. This is the problem with sort of like sort of direct debit type payment, and it's so easy for the money to go and to keep track of. I mean, I'm probably a nightmare for Amanda, my wife. She handles most of how I manage business finances. She manages home finances, and if I've then gone out and spent stuff, through direct debit, it's difficult to keep up with what's going on, especially when we have our telecoms bill is not small given everything that we've got going on and all that sort of stuff. We've had it before where they've added extra charges in. You're like, whoa, why? But not picking it up for like 3, 4, 5 months.
Right.
By which time it's too late. So, well done for catching it.
Yeah, the sneaky part is that so it was $70 more, which if you look at my bill, it put the first number from a 1 to a 2. Wow. So instead of 100 something, it was 200 something. Pay a lot for good internet here because it's important to me. Obviously, on a show like this, live streaming, and it doesn't always work all the time, so that sucks. But it went from a 1 to a 2. Now, if it was like I don't know, $10 less, if it was $60, I think, it would have been 1 as the first number still, and I probably would have overlooked it. So yes. It's a sneaky practice. I totally don't like it.
It's almost a legal phishing.
Yeah,
I've sort of seen around the whole cybersecurity thing and the way that the phishing works. We had it once where somebody tried a phishing attack against my bookkeeper in the business. So she's a business administration manager. Anyway, the perpetrators emailed her about using my email address as a mask. So it came in and basically said, "Oh, can just had this invoice come in? Can you pay it really quickly?" And the irony was that it was only because they asked for so much money at the time that that they got caught, or we realized what was going on, because it was just before we'd had one of our clients pay their bills, and so there wasn't very much money in the business account. So when this bill came in, and they were asking for something like £10,000 or something, so it wasn't a small chunk,
right?
And so Joe basically messaged me going, why we don't have this amount of money in the account, why are you asking me to pay it? And I'm like, pay what? That sort of thing. It just makes me think that actually almost these guys are doing a similar thing, that if you hadn't noticed, they're just chucking money in just to see if they can get away with it. It's right. But legally, sort of legally.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, they did come out here, but it wasn't our fault. So like, why were we charged?
And your internet's still rubbish.
Right. Yeah. You brought up something in your one more thing about the education system and how it's antiquated. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, I would, because it's interesting though, isn't it? Because our education system is antiquated. We sort of seem to have socially fallen into this thing that you're born, you spend some time at home, then we basically ram you into the education system as soon as we possibly can, largely because we need to go and work and
glorified daycare.
No, I mean, it's somebody said that the actual amount of education time you get for a day spent in school is 4 hours, and the rest of it is all basically childcare. And so we do that so we can go and work, but also, socially we now expect all of our children to go to school up until 16, 18, whenever you then pop out the other side, and then you go to work. And we are getting better at people taking, retaking exams or taking further qualifications during the education piece. But when I sort of look back now and say I did all the qualifications I did through school, do I use half of them? Not really.
No.
Do you? And is there a lot of other stuff there that we just didn't learn? Like how your governmental systems work, how to balance your finances at the end of the month, life skills, that sort of
Practical.
stuff. You don't get caught. You don't get taught. Sorry. That's probably
a Freudian slip.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I think there is something to be said around really somebody having the guts to, who's in a position of power, not just me, being able to turn around and say, actually, it is fundamentally broken, and I think it's detrimental to society, in the modern society that we live, that we could actually educate in a better way, that we actually educate people for life to begin with, and then the skills that they need, you educate them with them as you go, almost more of an apprenticeship route, or something of that nature.
Well, I think even beyond that, right? There's sort of with pre-planned curriculum, with sort of these standards and courses that need to be taken, it in a way stifles a student's ability to learn about the things that are interesting to them or engaging to them, that they can then learn some of those skills through. There's certain ways in which classes are taught, and those work for some, but others learn much differently by either hands-on interaction with something. So if you were to do like a mathematics course, well, how many medication pill caps am I holding, right? I'm holding 2, and 1 + 1 is 2, right? That's another way to do addition versus looking at it on paper, or even with your fingers, right? 1 and 1 is 2. And I do both with my son. I talk about them as I write them down, so that way he can see both examples live in the moment. And I think he's more visual, so he'll do the how many fingers? 2, okay, +1, 3, right? So like that's the way he learns.
Yeah.
And when thinking about what is going to be best for how we learn, it's going to take a monumental effort to restructure this system that we've all become complacent with. And it won't happen as a one and done reform. It will happen slowly over time if it does happen, which is also another like frustrating thing, right? Like,
I mean, I think the pandemic helped with some of it to a certain extent. So we, I think I've said this before, I don't think it's a great shock, that we home educate our kids anyway. Mm-hmm. And so have done since our eldest went into school for the first term. And then we pulled her out at the end of that term, and we've home educated ever since. And now our eldest she starts at university a couple of months' time, because we can't teach university level at the time. Even my own arrogance and ego says we can't do that. our younger daughter, she's about to go into college and stuff. So, it proves that we've always been keen to do that, because what you said around motivation is so key. If you can find what works for them, what tickles their fancy, what is it that they find truly interesting. If you can get that motivation bit right, then everything else is easy. There's nothing worse than trying to turn around and say, right, you shall do all these maths questions. I don't want to do maths. Well, you are. If you find something around, like you say, right, okay, we'll go and count all these bricks up, or whatever you're doing, or practical versions, but you still get the message across in the same way, then that works. The other thing is around the environment as well, because there is nowhere else in society that you take a cohort of exactly the same age people and put them in a room together and expect them to all learn and do things at the same pace.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere else, you've got work, you've got older people, younger people, all that sort of stuff. So it's a really unnatural environment for society at large. But I think, like I was saying before I went off on that mini rant, the pandemic has helped, because there's so many people who have to teach from home. That actually we've realised that there's actually quite a few people who've turned around and said, well, actually, I enjoyed this. I want to keep them at home, or work, educate from home, because actually people have rediscovered families again. That whole, you don't just getting up in the morning, get the kids out to school, so you can then go to work a long day, come back really tired, grouchy, whatever, having to put food onto the table. The kids come home, kids are home, they're grouchy because they've had a really long, stressful day as well. Then you all go to bed, and then the only time you get together is kind of at the weekend, when you all have a lie-in because you've had a long, tiring week. People refound the joy of having your family around with you again. So, I think it's interesting, and we need to work out what is it we want as a society. But as you quite rightly say, it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
Maybe some point in the future.
I mean, even beyond the structure, well, I guess it kind of gets its structure. I'm thinking more curriculum now, right? There's this like rigid requirement to hit certain topics at certain points and make sure you know certain things. They're not the right things. You mentioned that, right? And in some cases, they're not the right things in terms of what they will need in terms of life skills. But I think beyond that, there's sort of a teaching for knowledge's sake. You should know this, therefore we're going to teach it to you. But then there's also teaching for curiosity's sake. And I think that's something that's maybe largely missing from schools today, is not necessarily teaching children skills or facts or anything like that, but more focused on teaching them to crave learning.
Yep.
And I think if you solve that, you solve a lot of problems. If they crave learning through various mediums that we've already discussed, if they crave that learning, then there's going to be much less resistance to transferring that knowledge for skills, for facts. I think that's really where it should start. I think that could largely plug into the way that the system is done today. If we maybe slowly start to change it from curriculum based to, slowly change the curriculum to, starting to think about how do we encourage them to crave learning, then I think the rest will become easier as that change, right? Like that's a good place to start, in my opinion.
It absolutely, it's the give them the love of learning, and I think, as you quite rightly put, it's give them the how, not the what. So I think I said in the pre-show, I've been trying to teach myself how to do video editing using software. I didn't go and take a course to do that as such. I looked up on YouTube, I knew I could Google it, search for it on YouTube, find some good videos, spend a bit of time, then there's a bit of practical doing it myself, and then back to the video, learning a bit more, doing it myself. And that's because you now know that there is loads of knowledge and information out there to be able to pick it up and use it when you need it. So why do I need to learn it all when I'm between 11 and 16, if I need to go and learn that sort of stuff, I need to know how to go and do it. I need to go and look at how to be able to look at the sources of what I'm getting data from, or information from, and objectively review them, make sure that they're good sources, that it's quality stuff, how to do critical thinking, how to live in my own society, how to not be so as rude as I normally am, things like that, how to interact in society, how to regurgitate a random bit of knowledge on like some sort of trick pony, is not necessary in today's society anymore.
No.
So, because most people, when they go through school, college, that sort of stuff, and particularly if they leave school, pretty much as soon as they can, well, they'll forget what 2/3 or pick a random statistic. Amount of knowledge. They've learned it, they've regurgitated it for an exam. They've got an exam result, and they don't pick it up ever again. So it's wasted.
I mean, like, my son is almost at an age where he is going to start asking why a million times. He's almost there. And the one thing that I am trying to focus on as a parent when that happens, my wife already said, you handle that. Because I volunteered. I was like, yes, let me handle that, because I think that is the most important question that anyone can ask. Why? And so when he starts to ask that question, I will have answers for some things, but the answers that I don't, I'm going to be honest with him and say, I don't know. And let's look it up, and try to encourage that sense of wanting to know the answer, and, teach him to use a search engine, show him, he's almost 3. So it's like, I'm not going to go into the intricacies of being like, this source is not great right now, but it will be that discussion in a few years' time. It will be very much like, why are you blindly trusting that source? Those are the questions that I will start to ask once he has mastered the ability to use a preferably anonymous search engine. Because also things that, being in our field, we know of certain dangers and certain things that we should probably keep track of, like privacy. And so that's going to be another thing that I'm going to instill in him. As like, hey, the more websites have information on you, the more they can sort of target you for certain things. And right now it's not so bad, because they see that you searched for a car at one point, and now you're getting a bunch of car ads. But in the future, it could be much more damaging. It's so weird to try to think about that stuff right now, but all that to be said, the why question, let's look it up. I don't know, let's look it up together.
But that also raises another social construct that we put into place. We ought, given the teacher student relationship, particularly when they're younger, we're automatically instilling the fact that there's somebody within your cohort, so they stand at the front, they know everything. You can ask teacher, and teacher will tell you what the answer is. So you've always got somebody who always knows what the answer is. Well, that's not true of life. And actually, it sets you in a bad place, because it's only when you get to, say, master's level or PhD level, particularly if you're doing a PhD, nobody knows what you know, because you've stretched science, or you stretch thinking in some way. But very few people get to that level. Most people are there thinking, oh, well, there's somebody who always knows better than I do. So you're already creating this subservient relationship, which is just damaging. I thoroughly recommend a TED talk by what's his name, Ken Robinson, and he talks about how schools kill creativity, and it was seeing that talk that, I said we've been home educating for a while, so we'd already had it circulating in our heads that we didn't like different bits. But when you watch that TED talk, and unfortunately he passed away fairly recently, but you listen to what he says and watch what he says, and you're like, wow, yeah, it's so blindingly obvious when it's put out in front of you. And this was all just reignited again for me by my daughter stressing about her maths exam that she got tomorrow, and so she's doing another mock paper tonight. And part of me is like, obviously to her face and stuff, he's like, you do your best, all that sort of stuff, and you're doing really well. And then part of me is just inside going, why are we forcing our kids to go through and just learn how to pass an exam which has no real relevance? Because you don't, when you go to work and just work in isolation, without asking, without picking up your phone to use a calculator or whatever it is, it's just not realistic.
Yeah, I mean, even beyond like knowledge exams for like what do you call them, primary school students? Yeah. I mean, even beyond those, you have sort of these like I'm thinking like the GRE, graduate requisite exam to get into grad school. Yeah. What is that really testing? It's testing your ability to sit, memorize facts, and test your ability to strengthen your skills with one specific thing for however long you do it, and perform that skill against others, and put you on a bell curve. Like that's really what it's testing. And it's frustrating because that should not be the exclusion criteria for wanting to learn more and having the drive to learn more, right? Like if somebody, like, just take the lab, for example, right? We put out a post on LinkedIn for the volunteer position this week. If somebody were to come through that process and say, I failed the GRE, I can't get into grad school, I'm looking for experience to help push me over the edge because I have a desire to learn, right? I'm not going to hold the fact that they didn't complete the GRE, they didn't pass the GRE against them. I see somebody and their desire to learn, their desire to do better, their desire to push forward further. And I'm like, why is it an exclusionary criteria? It just makes no sense to me. From like, if I ever go back into academia, that will be like, I don't care about that. Can we take that off of the requirement list? Because I just don't care. It's a filtering mechanism, but there are better ways to filter against, those who are there because they want to be versus those who are there because of other motivations. I don't know.
I've always looked upon this as almost quite militantly to a certain extent in terms of me as an employer. When you're sort of sitting there going, right, it's because we always try and frame it with my sort of more socialist hat on. It's like it's making sure that everybody embraces their opportunity and stuff like that. But when I put my capitalist hat on, as an employer sitting there going, well, actually, just because somebody's got, say, a bunch of A's or a bunch of high grades doesn't actually mean that they're articulate, doesn't mean that they're presentable, doesn't mean that they've got life skills. It doesn't mean that they can think critically or things like that. To the point that I rarely look at the grades for, what grade did you get on your degree or whatever qualifications you're presenting, because I almost don't care. If you've got the right level of sort of knowledge, or you can demonstrate to me, because we generally do, it's okay to do presentations and have discussions and stuff like that as part of the interview process. As long as you can get across ideas to me and you've got willingness to learn and you're keen and you're motivated, that's way more important to me than how you managed to perform in a 90-minute exam on something that you probably now can't remember. So yeah, I think we should need to reform the world. I think we should just start it all again, just because we say so.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Human Factors Cast, gonna change the world. We should work on that. We should put that in our lab backlog as changing the world one idea at a time. That's probably somebody's slogan. I don't know.
Probably is, but technically you've just come up with it without referencing anything else. So therefore, you still own the copyright to it.
Oh, is that how that works? I mean, what if somebody else came up with it? There'd be what, like dual ownership of it? Like,
I believe so. As long as you can still claim, because if two people come up with the same thing at the same time, you still both have your own individual copyright to it, because it was original thought. Or both, you didn't copy anybody else's work. However, if they can prove that you maybe subliminally were influenced,
right? That's what I'm saying. Is like, how do I know that I wasn't subliminally influenced? I'm pretty sure I've heard that before. Changing the world one idea at a time. I'm gonna Google that really quick.
It's probably an Apple thing.
Idea at a time. Well, that is the Essentials of Entrepreneurship. Second edition, Changing the World one idea at a time. So it does exist out there. I didn't claim that was original. But entrepreneurship is not something that I've Googled recently, so I don't know where I would have picked that up. So
no, it's just a phrase. Now that sort of thing, I don't think if you were to do something like that, you'd have to trademark it.
Right.
And that might be already trademarked.
Yeah. Probably.
So, like I've got trademark. Optimizing human potential is my trademark.
Ooh, look at that. Well, hey, it's time for us to go. We will not be back next week, although I will have something on a. There will be an event. It will play for you all. It will be our EHF coverage. It will look like we're there, but this was recorded a couple weeks ago, last week maybe. I don't know. It'll look like we're there, and I'll be gone. Barry will be, I don't know, enjoying his free time.
I go to the pub,
booking more people for his show, and I think the following week we'll be gone, and then we'll be back. And it will be a good time, and we'll see what we talk about. I'm really sort of bummed. I know we're at time, but I just want to bring this up because I'm sort of bummed about the news stories that probably won't be based on our news recap this week. Let's see, our news recap this week. Top stories. You want to hear them, Barry?
Go on then.
I'm thinking that because we will do another news recap before we post the Choose the News. Anyway, here are the stories this week. Video games can help boost children's intelligence.
That's
how we perceive crowds. Crowds of people.
That's an interesting one. I've done research on that.
It will soon be easy for self-driving cars to hide in plain sight. We shouldn't let them.
Intriguing.
And passenger lands plane after pilot gets sick.
Okay. I've sort of seen that happen quite a few times before, so
yeah, it's not novel, but it does give us an opportunity for springboarding. So
absolutely, it does. Yes.
All right, that's it. We're gonna get out of here. Enjoy our breaks, I guess, and we'll our past selves will see you next week at the same time, same place, and yeah.
Enjoy your holiday and lots of photos, and we shall see you in 3 weeks' time.